Welcome to the Dr. Hutch Show. I'm Dr. J.L. Hutchison Jr. and welcome to 1220 Beyond the Word.
And I'm Evangelist Elaine P. Jones, co-host. Today we will be discussing the topic, the foreclosure process.
Yeah, the foreclosure process. We decided, as far as save our house. And it was a thing where God had put it on my heart. I was laying in the bed. I was taking a nap. I mean, believe me, at my age, we need to take naps sometime. And I just heard voices screaming. And I was, this is people screaming from hell? What's going on? And then later that night, I had the same thing happen. And the next morning I woke up, and as soon as my feet hit the floor, God said, those voices you heard are people that's in foreclosure. God's people. I understand that a lot of people say certain things and tell you certain things about what you can do and what is being done. And sometimes those hopes are false. Just to be honest, I'm just going to be straight honest with you. And I've been in the business in all positions. So I used to teach my clients to become real estate investors, and then got into the foreclosures and representing the banks. And I bought a bunch of foreclosures myself. And every time I seen what was happening, and I myself personally know, going through that situation myself, being in foreclosure, but saving my home, but the emotional toll that it takes upon you, people knocking on your door, people putting things on your door, disturbing your peace, threatening you, and people have to understand that nobody knows what you go through unless they're going through that situation. And then you're looking for some type of hope. I remember in the late 90s, I was looking for help. You know, looking on the internet, looking at every corner, listening to every, going through the bookstore, looking through the newspaper, trying to find someone to help me deal with this situation, and not knowing what I was actually going through. And the process of going through foreclosure, things happen in your family and things happen to you financially, where it puts you in a situation where it's like scrambled eggs. You don't know what's going on. And you're listening to and hoping that the people that's in power, that's you're trusting in them to lead you in the right direction. And as me being in the business for many years, I found out that that's not all true, and the uncovering and unveiling of things brought me to the conclusion and that there is really the help that you think you're going to get, you're going to have to get it yourself. You can't rely on the attorneys. You can't rely on the government. You can't rely on the modification programs, because things happen. Let me share with you a short story that brought me to this point. I had a gentleman that's a client of mine who found himself in a situation where he was working with the modification company, doing everything that he needed to do with them, get the paperwork and all that stuff. And then he found himself in a situation where every time he turned around, they say they lost it. I'm sorry, I lost the paperwork. And he kept on doing this. And Lord and behold, he found himself with the sheriff coming to his house and putting a notice on his door saying that his house is up for auction later this year. And he was in shock that was happening, because he was in the process of negotiating
for modification.
For modification. He didn't know that they had already filed the complaint for foreclosure. and filing a complaint for foreclosure, he had no idea that this was going on, and he was still talking to the bank, thinking everything was going okay. And he finds himself in a situation where he can lose his home that he has had for many years. And what do you do when you find yourself in that situation? Who do you turn to? You turn to the attorneys that work for the banks. They only get paid a certain amount of money. Once their retainer's gone, then they're gone.
Right.
As far as and they put up just enough defense to stop you. And then you hire an attorney, and the attorney that you hire, he only works for what you can afford to give him, and then he goes away. Whenever everybody's gone away, and there's you go into a modification, and then the modification thing is that the service companies play the game, and what they do is get the fees and the money from you. But I'm just going to.
But then what happens after that? Do they help you with the modification or what?
No. They lie, and they tell a whole bunch of different lies. But I'm just going to take you through the process of what actually happens, so that you can understand the situation. I worked as had people that worked as trustees for me. I did the property preservations for the banks. I cleaned out the houses, did the cash for keys, did the occupancy checking to see if the people lived there. So I worked on the side with the banks and the different service companies that worked for the bank. And the banks didn't pay us neither. They were making all kinds of money. They was getting money.
Didn't even pay you.
Yeah, they was getting money from the government and everything. They end up owing us over $470,000, and they still haven't paid. And I have been in transactions where we bought non-performing notes, and it was bought over $2.1 billion in notes, and still didn't get paid from the banks. And then turned around and did another deal for $2 billion and still didn't get paid by the bank. So the banks, in my book, is banksters. Crooks and banksters. So they can take whatever they get from people, and that's what they do. And they feel like they're above the law. But let me take you through the process. As far as, let's just go through the foreclosure process real quick. When a person is late on their payment, you late on your payment, you basically say you're 90 days late. You're 90 days late on your payment, and then as you being 90 days late on your payment, you get a notice. And a notice because there's a judicial and a non-judicial system. So you get a notice that you are 90 days late. Once you're 90 days late, they give you an opportunity to do a forbearance agreement, or you can negotiate and with the bank. Or some people file for bankruptcy, and sometimes they file for Chapter 13, Chapter 7. They work out a payment plan, or sometimes people give the deed in lieu of them actually being foreclosed on. And then some people, they go through the payment process with the modification. In 2012 and 2013, that's what's the years for the modification. And you have to understand, the banks make money when they're in the modification process. It's it's best to keep you in the modification program and not let you get to the point where you actually settle and set up with a payment plan. The reason is because they make money. For example, Citigroup put in their pocket over $212 million just in the modification process.
In fees?
Oh, wow. Wells Fargo did over $616 million just in fees. So they take the money that they get from you, and they make their money. But let me let you into the secret behind the closed doors. We know the foreclosure process. We just said in 90 days, the bank turns around and gives you a notice. Well, one thing people don't understand and don't know, when the bank turns around and you don't pay your payment in 90 days, the 91st day, 91 days later, 91 days, the bank turns around and get a check for the total of your loan from the insurance company.
Are you serious?
Yes.
So they get paid,
and it's paid off
in full.
In full, paid off. So the mortgage get paid off. And the reason that is because of the insurance. That's why the company AIG was in trouble, because they paid off those mortgages.
Wow. Okay.
You know, that's just one payment. But let me take you back to the beginning when you first did your mortgage. Okay. When you first did your mortgage, there's a process where you go and you get an appraisal. So you go and you get an appraisal, and the appraisal you get is on the house that you're going to buy.
Right, that's true.
Let's backstep. The house that you're going to buy. You don't even own the house. When do you do an appraisal on something that you don't own?
The only time I've ever done it was when I was about to purchase a home.
But when has you ever done any appraisal on somebody else's watch?
Never.
Somebody else's car?
Never.
That's the catch-22. You're doing an appraisal on something that you don't own. When you do an appraisal says value. And when it says value, it becomes a negotiable instrument. You go to the bank turns around and says, thank you very much. They take that item, say the house is $100,000. You take that appraisal, the bank says, okay, we'll process this. And what the bank says when they process it, they go to the Federal Reserve and they get a line of credit 10 times that value. So they get $1 million line of credit from the bank. From the Federal Reserve, and they turn to you and say, okay, you put 20% down, we'll give you 80% on the loan. They got $1 million from something that you gave to them that was a negotiable instrument.
You had to pay for that appraisal.
And you had to pay for the appraisal. And then you turn around and what do? You put 20% down, and then you make a payment plan and paying over 30 years or 15 years or 25.
Based on the so-called loan.
Based on the loan that they give you. And then they take that money that they have and they give you what? A promissory note, a deed, and a title, and they pay the people who you're purchasing the house from. All right. Once they do that, it's a system that's called the Mortgage Electronic System. Mortgage Electronic Register System. So what they do, they take the mortgage and they put it into this system. And when they put it into the system, the deed goes with it and is put into a SPV, which is a special purpose vehicle used to open up a trust to turn that mortgage into a security so that you can sell on the stock market. Once they do that, what happens, the mortgage and the deed separates.
Right.
The mortgage, as far as the promissory note, the IOU, and all that it separates. So it goes into the system. And once it goes into the system, the issue is that now the trust do not own the property. Remember, the trust cannot own the property. It only owns the cash flow that comes through. So who owns the property?
I don't know. I can't figure it out.
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to discuss that. This is Dr. Hutch, and we'll be right back.
Dr. Hutch today. Dr. Hutch is committed to assisting entrepreneurs and business owners in developing their business to perform on the next level. If you are a corporation, school, church, or nonprofit organization that would like Dr. Hutch to take your company one step closer to success and impact the lives of your employees and you, please contact us at 216-264-6214 or visit thedrhutchshow.com. That's THEDRHUTCHSHOW.com.
Welcome back to the Dr. Hutch Show. I'm Dr. J.L. Hutchison, and we are talking about foreclosure, save my house, giving you some groundwork on what goes on behind the scenes with the banks. And you say, well, Dr. Hutch, why you know so much about this? Well, once upon a time, I was in the process of starting my own bank. I got to the process where I ended up having my own bank in 2008, and for a very short period of time until the market crashed in October 2008. So I know about what happens behind the scenes. And my mentor was in the banking business, and he taught me a lot about the banking industry and doing mortgages, and myself loaning out money to people. And sometimes I had to foreclose, and sometimes I had to go through the situation of making a decision of should I keep the property or should I sell the property or whatever. But the thing is, I know the system because it's a big game. Just to be blunt with you, it is a game. It's a money game. As we were talking about who owns the home, when the property goes into this SPV, which is a special purpose vehicle, they give it a number, and it's a number that they have with this property, and this is usually an 18-digit number. And this 18-digit number identifies that security, that trust. So it's an irrevocable trust that actually, they call it mortgage-backed securities. So they put that in there with a whole bunch of other mortgages, and they sell it to the investor. And once they sell it to the investor, guess what happens?
What happens then?
The mortgage is paid again. So twice, the mortgage has been paid twice already.
This sounds very, very tricky, and it sounds very dishonest.
But that's the way the system works. Let me explain. So as that property that mortgage being put into they call it the MERS system. Once it's put in there, that property, the Supreme Court ruled that when the promissory note and the note, the title is separated, that means it is void. That means that mortgage is no good. That means that far as what I'm saying is that it's been paid. And what the banks do, they take and they hire a service company to collect the money from you. So the service company is collecting from you, but the situation is that this place has already been paid for. Twice. And then it gets paid again once it gets sold again. Every time it gets transferred over to another bank, another bank pays for it. The reason they set up the system, because when you're with the bank, you go to the bank and you put your mortgage with the bank, and the bank keeps your mortgage for 30 years, and you pay for 30 years, and the bank still holds it. But the bank can't free up any money. So they made the system so the bank can sell it off and be able to free up some money so that they can loan to other people. That's the way it's supposed to work. But they figured out if they could do one thing, if they can sell it over and over and over again, they'll make more money. But also at the same time, what they do is that the property sits there. So who owns the property? When they do it through the MERS system, the note is destroyed. So there is no note because it's electronically done. So nobody knows who owns the property, because if you don't have the note, you cannot foreclose the true note. So what the banks decided to do, since they didn't have the true note, so what they decided to do, they rented out a room, hired a bunch of people, set up a service company to do what? The robo-signing. You hire a bunch of teenagers, you say, I'm going to pay you $10, you $10 for every signature that you sign. And they signed their name. They didn't sign their name. They signed somebody else's name who act like they made up names of people to be vice president.
So
and they
is that fraud?
Yes, that's fraud. Because they said if you can get 3,000 names signed per day to a teenager, what, 3,000 names times $10? I'm going to try my best to see how many. And they set up the people at a table and they signed these notes saying that you agreed for a modification, you agreed for this, you agreed for this, and you have a note with them, and they falsify these documents, and they go to court when they foreclose, and they say, hey, guess what? We foreclose, and here's the note. But the people don't understand the system, and they don't challenge it. Okay. And when they don't challenge it, the judges, they agree because they do business with the banks, because the banks do what? Give money for their elections. The politicians, the president, they all agree. So nobody fights the banks because everybody lays down.
Well, you know what, Dr. Hutch? This sounds like a movie.
It sounds like a movie, but that's the way the system is.
This is really going on, and maybe that's one of the reasons people don't resist and they don't fight, because it just seems so greedy that anybody would go through these lengths to defraud someone.
Well, look at this. The banks do not do what? The banks don't go and fix up the houses.
No.
The banks don't care about the houses.
No.
The banks want to keep you. Now what they're doing, they have escalated the foreclosures before the people can wake up and open their eyes, because they will be accused of fraud. So they they foreclose on the properties, take the properties from the people. That's the evidence.
Okay.
So once the people are out of the house, everything is okay. So the banks won't be accused of fraud. My client, his bank went out of business. It's a lot of banks that went out of business.
That is so
it's
true.
Thousands and millions of houses that are sitting vacant in neighborhoods, and nobody know who owns it.
Right.
And just like in Detroit, Michigan, they forced the banks to come in to pay the fees because of the violations, and the cities have lost their tax money. Plus, not only did the city lose their tax money, they lost their money because they had invested the pension funds and the 401ks into the mortgage-backed securities that the banks were selling, and they were fraudulent. And those people have lost their 401ks, lost their retirement, lost everything. But people are starting to realize that there's a thing, it's called securitization. And then securitization is an audit on the security. If your house has went through the MERS system, you can go back and say, hey, this is fraudulent. And you can challenge the banks because they do not own that property. You can do a quiet claim to get your property.
So in other words, are you saying the first thing to do once you get that notice is not to get scared and run away?
Yes.
Don't abandon your property.
Yes.
And don't start trying to file for these modifications.
Yeah, because when you file for the modification, that's the game they want to keep you in. Everything keeps you in limbo so they can do the things that they need to do to you.
Behind your back.
Behind your back. You over here talking to one service company, but they already then sold the mortgage. Because remember, Bank of America, they have a service company too. Then you also have Chase has a service company, but you think you're dealing with Chase Bank, but you're dealing with the service company. You know, like U.S. Bank National Associates. You think you're dealing with them, and what they're doing, they're servicing the loan, and they act like they own the note, but they don't.
But they don't.
And then you up here negotiating on one hand, thinking you keeping your house, and then the next thing, they taking your house. Well, let's look at it. Let's look at it from the spiritual aspect. The devil does not want God's people to have any place. Look, in any country where you are, in any country around the world, people do not own their home. They do not own the land. The land is owned by the government.
Right.
This is the only place where you have a place where you can call yours. And that is being taken from the people. People are distracted with all types of stuff.
Right.
The scandal on television, all these different things.
TV, music.
And what people don't understand is that this information is out there, but people are so busy, so tied up, they can't focus and put their mind on the things that need to be taken care of and understand what the country is going through and what the crisis is. You can visit our website, www.drhutchescommitted hutchlive.com, and we have a section on there, foreclosure. Look at the videos. Look at the videos. We're going to be introducing our service at the end of this month called Legal Rescues from Foreclosures, and we want you to understand that you can save your house. You can prevent your house from being sold. I went and I looked on Summit County, and I looked at Cuyahoga County. It's thousands and thousands of houses, and that is thousands of families and people are going to be displaced. Where they're going to go? That is very, very troubling.
Yeah. Yes,
very troubling.
Very troubling.
And when you look at the process of this, everybody seems like they're in this mode where they think everything's okay and it's not okay.
Right.
The devil is busy. He's behind the scenes.
Deceiving.
He's deceiving. People thinking that this is going to work out for him, and it's not. In the long run, it's just prolongs. What you have to do, you have to sue these people for fraud. And there's a process that you go through. And let me get back to securitization. Securitization, what it does, it actually identifies all the things that they did wrong. Every fraudulent thing, it shows that the mortgage was paid over and over and over again. It shows you'll see how much the bank has made. You'll see the audits. You'll see all that. Then on top of that, what you do, you take it to court and you prove to the bank, you prove to the court by a ponderance of evidence that the securitization, and based on the Supreme Court decision that when a mortgage and a promissory note is separated, is voided.
Okay.
You can get your home. Use the system to fight back. And let me let you know, the local courts, they play in the game. They keep you. But in the federal court, because this is a federal court, because you're dealing with the Securities and Exchange Commission versus dealing with the local.
Okay.
So you go from the state court and county courts to the federal court.
So it sounds like you're saying, Dr. Hutch, there is hope. But
yes.
What people need to do is become educated about what they can do. There are other options. And don't be misled and deceived, but to do their own research.
Yeah, and it's a lot to go over in this thing. So what we're going to do next week, we're going to talk a little bit more about what you can do far as in regards to the process. This was an awareness show to make you aware of the process and make you aware that there is hope. Even if your house, I have saved so many houses, over 300 some homes I have saved. And I remember one time I got a call and the people said, they selling my house in the next 5 hours. Oh my God. I was like, why you calling me? You know, and I responded, and we saved and we stopped the sale.
Thank God.
It's a process that you go through. And even though they put this sticker on the door and this stuff, we're coming in, the sheriff is coming, we actually stopped it.
Hallelujah.
We stopped the sale. We made sure that the people got their house. I even had a situation where the people were moved out of their house. And we brought them back into their house 2 weeks later. So we can reverse these things. Things can happen.
Yes.
It's a process.
Yes.
Well, next week we're going to be talking about Save Your House Part 2. Thank you for joining us this evening. And next week we're going to talk more about foreclosures. You have been listening to us on 1220 Beyond the Word.